Bring that tying thread up, 2 loose wraps over the top, 1 in front to cock it up, and then pull on the material, right? I'm actually under tension, and then securing it back to around the hook point area, and then actually coming in with my scissors on an angle. I'm not coming vertically in. I'm kind of trying to cut them on a taper, so when I go to continue covering those butts up, I've built a nice little sort of thread ramp, because if you're not careful you can overdo it on a size 12 and you won't be able to get your beads on. And there are sometimes inconsistencies with the beads. Some have bigger diameter holes and smaller, so if you're not sure, make a test, right? Push it up. You could certainly use the uni stretch floss, and it's a little more compressible, but I find it doesn't have that luminescence that you know, if you shine that UV light on both, it doesn't have the fluorescence or the luminescence that this UV2 material has. And I'm just going to slide that bead up, and she fit. That's always a good thing. And again, reattach the tying thread. And thread color is important on this fly. You can use burnt orange, tan, white, or this rusty brown. They all have a slight effect on the color. So I'm going to go down again about 45 degrees. Come back up all the way, and I'm going to use a wire rib on this one, UTC gold and small. If this was a 14, I'd be using extra small. So I use the small gold wire on 10s and 12s, and that's a 3/32 bead. So I'm just going to take this gold wire, grab it right behind the bead, and kind of secure it all the way down the side. Just want to crush that down a little bit better. And I'm trying to keep your fly skinny. I'm distributing the materials around the shank. Right? It gives the illusion that things are skinny because everything's around the side as opposed to all piled one on top of each other on top of the fly. And this fly has a little red butt. So I'm just going to use some medium red holographic mylar. Just going to secure that flat on top. And then I'm going to go around once, twice, 3 times, and actually sort of work my thread along the underside of it and catch it underneath. Get that secured in, and then trim off the excess, and then carry my tying thread forward up to the bead. And I'm trying as best I can is to make that entirely one color. Okay? Now for the material, the original, I'll tie it with the original, but use the substitutes out there, like this is buzzer wrap. This coloration is not the right one, brown. Where is it? That's it right there. It's called root beer. Okay? This is called frostbite. This is called summer duck, or wood duck, I think. Okay, this was the one in my first book, how I used it. So what I do with frostbite is a woven material. It's all woven together. In this state, it makes great wing cases on Callibatus nymphs or small scuds. And you coat them. But if you were to wind this down the body, it's far too thick. So what we do is I take about 1.5 inches or so, or to a fisherman about 4 feet, and I'm just pulling on this gently, not sharply, gently, and see how it starts to unravel? And what it'll do, if I really do it well, wow, this unraveled almost completely. I need to buy a lottery ticket. But usually, and this did, it unravels and it jams up on itself and forms a small knot where my thumb is there, and then 2 open ends here. Now the trouble with this stuff is it's got it's unruly, it's got memory, right? So there's an easy way to control it. The first step, because I'm going to form a body out of these 2 strands, I'm going to moisten them. That will keep them together. And then I'm going to secure them in by the tips, right? But you can imagine trying to tie those 2 tips in could be fun. Frustrating. But what I'm going to do is just get the material on the hook. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come underneath the shank in my left hand here. I've got the knotted end, and in my beat up old right hand here, that's the 2 open ends. So I'm just going to come up under the shank with the frostbite between myself and the tying thread. I'm exaggerating. See how I picked that up with the thread? I'm going to drop it down right on top. I'm going to throw an extra wrap, and then I'm going to play a little Russian roulette. Right? Because I need to wrap a body with this, so I can't just tie it in and cut it off. I won't have enough material. Right? Because every time you unravel frostbite, you don't always get the same length. And that's about as far as I dare. Tie the rest in. Great, get my wire tangled up in it, so I'm not screwing around. Wrap that in the clip, and now all I'm going to do is wind this down the shank, and I might open up the wraps a little bit going down because I have to get back up to the tying thread. So when you overwrap a material with itself, you get a couple of benefits. First of all, on the return trip home, I get the chance to cover up any gaps in the material, adjust the taper on the body a little bit, but also it adds durability because when this material tries to unravel itself, it's got to fight itself to do it, right? It's like you trying to pick yourself up on a chair. It's hard to do. You ever try it? You can't do it, right? Because you're fighting your own body weight. And I just tie that off. And I've made a nice, neat, shiny body. Now, the drawback to frostbite is it works good on smaller flies. When you get into bigger stuff, it doesn't unravel to a long enough length to allow you to make that journey back and forth. And that's where, you know, this stuff, truthfully, I tie more and more of the collaborators out of this because it's just one giant unraveled long length. I saved myself a step. You know, out of one section, I can get 2 flies, right? Out of one length of the material, I get 2 flies out of it. And then we're just going to take our ribbing material. I like to put a complete wrap at the base. I'm going to come up through the middle of the butt. And if I can, my second wrap is going to go right on the seam. And then I just keep going in rhythm. Come up right behind the bead. 2 wraps over top. 2 wraps in front. And if you pull and twist, put your thumbnail there, sometimes helps. It'll just helicopter and break away, which saves your scissors points. And no matter how good you are with scissors, you always leave a little tag end sticking up that thread just loves to go after. All right. And then again, you could whip finish here if you want, but again, I still like the contrast Peacock Curl offers. Contrast is a good thing to have in our flies. And this fly has worked for me all over North America. I caught fish on it on Roche Lake, this exact size the other day. I've used it in California with good success, Oregon, Idaho, Manitoba. I've actually had good coloration. There's another great pattern to try is a John Kent pattern called the Dragon Lake Special that looks similar coloration. Not other than that, a few differences, silver bead and silver ribs. But there's something about that summer duck looking color, or wood duck color, trout seem to like, and they'll eat it even when they're not eating those things, right? Just the way it looks down there, I don't know. So it's always a good color combination to have in your...
Does it go the same way, Phil?
What?
With all your time, like clockwise, or?
What do you mean?
Well, you know, you go around, well, sometimes I've read that it's better sometimes to, like...
Oh, the ribbing to counter it?
Yeah.
Well, here's what...
For durability and stuff like that.
Yes and no. Yes, it is, I suppose, but you got to think, when I wrap away from me and I go to tie that down, what's the thread pressure going to do to that material? It's going to further tighten it, right? It's going to go with the pull. But if you're not careful when you counter wrap, your thread wraps can actually push the material back and loosen it somewhat, right? Because I'm coating this thing. So I'm not really too worried about, you know, that kind of aspect, because I'm going to coat this with the body. When I'm doing pheasant tail nymphs like that, what I'll often do is I will counter wrap the body material, right? I'll put a basic glue down, counter wrap it over that glue like I did with the chromie, tie it off because it's a softer material, it won't push and unravel. The wire is stiff. and wants to resist anything. Better wrap this.
Palmered hackle, the same idea?
Palmered hackle, I usually wind, when I like a woolly bugger,
Yeah.
I'll tie the ribbon, the tail, the rib, make the body, tie in the hackle at the front, and wind the hackle backwards to the tail. Open wraps, let it hang on hackle pliers, and then bring your ribbing through the hackle. And you get a really durable crisscross effect. So for the fish to tear your woolly bugger apart, he has to bite through every individual section, right?
That way you crisscross it.
Yeah, and adds durability as well. Now, if I had more time, I usually color the, if I'm really in a fussy frame of mind, aka anal retentive, I would change to a green or black thread, or just take a marker and turn this black so the burnt orange doesn't show through the peacock curl, which falls into the area of who really cares, right? So again, we're going to give this a nice coating. I'm trying not to get it into the hurl itself. It's the beauty of this narrow little brush. You can see how that just, once I put the coating on, it even adds more of a luster to it. And the beauty of these UV coatings, no matter what you're using, is they stay soft and workable until you give them a little sunlight in a can. And again, you can see how that gill material, just see how it's popping? So you imagine this fly down deep or in a crowd of chironomids, any available light, it's going to reflect and stand out and say, come eat me. And just think how many chironomid people's lives you're going to save.